Mezzanine finance is loan funding that ranks behind senior debt but ahead of equity in the capital structure. It is an ideal alternative to equity where a company wants to raise some capital for growth. The banks are not providing it, but equity may be too expensive or difficult to raise at that point in the company's life cycle.
We'd like to believe that mezzanine combines what we love best about debt with what we love best about equity.
Investors like it as well because unlike equity, mezzanine is self-liquidating.
It's got characteristics of both equity and senior debt.
We on to our 27th deal here at Vantage. Our competitors are barely commencing. We don't think the mezz market is crowded. Yes, we do lose deals to banks, and we do occasionally lose deals to private equity. But it's very rare that we meet another mezz fund.
Being a leader in this niche asset class firstly, I think that's a big selling point on its own. We outperform a lot of our peers in the mezz space.
As a firm, we literally have a 10-year head start on our competitors.
Mezzanine USP is very straightforward. 80% of private equity return for 50% of the risk.
I think it was late 2011 when the SA government launched its renewable energy independent power producer program. We realized that tens of billions of rands of debt was being raised from the banks for these projects, and we purchased 1.8 billion rand of debt from Standard Bank, and so GreenX was born.
GreenX, unlike the mezz business, is a senior lending business. We provide senior debt into all the projects that have been procured by the IPP office. So far we've been successful in lending to 14 projects.
And it's been a tremendous success.
GreenX as a fund it differentiates itself from the business of Vantage Capital's mezz business because it's a lower risk product. They have the same characteristics as a government bond, but in return for taking a little bit of wind risk or solar risk, the investors getting a yield uplift that makes it very attractive.
Investors are really local pension funds, European development finance institutions, endowments, and niche investors like European family offices.
They're looking for 15 to 20-year investments. The money that they've invested can effectively beat inflation on an ongoing basis. The GreenX business is in a very exciting space right now. We're looking for the least cost energy solution for South Africa. From a Vantage GreenX perspective, we'd like to ride that wave of opportunity.
The case for mezzanine in Africa is very strong. You have these mid-sized companies desperate for capital to grow. The pros are really that you have a much bigger universe.
But it's a bold step, and I think one must go in with your eyes open.
It has some of the fastest growing economies in the world.
The challenge is that you need a much wider experience base.
Investing into the continent is very difficult. The listed markets are extremely shallow and volatile.
I think legal systems are very important where we can enforce our security should we have to, and we've proven we can do it.
We've got professionals who've worked on all corners of the continent.
We always believe there will be high growth in Africa.
From an investee company perspective, we're looking for people who've done it before.
It's quite simple really. We're looking for a mid-sized business with strong growth prospects that needs expansion capital.
And they've also got to have some commerciality because we're dealing with, and personality, because we're dealing with people and we're dealing with businesses, and every business is different.
So we supported a business called Ascendus Health to buy Effective. We put in a substantial amount of mezz. and it proved to be exceptionally successful transaction. And with free equity that we had received in Effector of 15%, we were able to then monetize that free equity for 40 million rand and achieve an IRR of over 50%.
We invested in Servest because we like the underlying business. It's also a very highly rated sector. We also like the strong management team who were strong not just operationally but strong deal makers. Our Servest GSH investment could prove to be one of our strongest investments ever. Has the potential to return to investors a 3 to 5 times money multiple.
Vantage is one of the most extraordinary growth stories that I've ever come across in my entire investment career. There are barely in a couple of suburbs. We committed 250 million rand to that business. Today, Vumatel has over 300,000 homes passed, over 80,000 subscribers, and we were able to monetize our 6% free equity for over 220 million rand.
So in those deals, we even outperform private equity returns, and I think that's very satisfying for us. And I mean, we took that view with NewGX, that a great entrepreneur, good businessman, somebody who would be a success in the industry. What we liked is it was a successful investment, but also promoting, I think, and supporting BEE and supporting black entrepreneurs. NewGX, he had put a lot of his own money in and had a lot to lose.
NewGX being a family business, we were quite reluctant to bring in an institutional investor at that stage. It was our first sort of capital raising. There is a perfect relationship between NewGX and Vantage. We've gone through a lot together. When they came to do their due diligence, the Vantage team, there wasn't much here. So they had to believe in what we were telling them. The more we reported, the more we were transparent, the more the team supported us. Between Mohammed, Luke and Hugo, we've received referrals, probably anything about 10 opportunities. It's been good for us, it's been good for them. I think to actually back a black industrialist story that invests in impact infrastructure. They've been very supportive.
Orstel is a pharma company that has these incredible products. It has had the most phenomenal performance since we invested 100 million rand in Orstel a few years back. Its profits have increased 9-fold. It's the fastest growing pharma business in the country.
The investors we talk to are normally concerned with the equity buckets of their organizations, and they like the risk-adjusted returns of the kind of mezzanine that we do. And there's a vast world of investors out there, many different countries, and you're learning all the time.
We are investing globally in funds, doing only fund investments and no direct investments, looking at Africa for 10 years plus, and our current investor in Vantage Fund 2 and 3.
So I've known Vantage, at least Colin and Luke, since 2008. We thought it would be a good addition for our portfolio, given two things. One, it's a reduced risk.
So we've got an asset consultant, Suka and Associates, that is responsible for bringing new investment ideas to the fund. And he introduced us to the fund, it must be 2-3 years ago. So that's how we came to know about Vantage Capital.
So we were one of the first investors who looked into the Vantage Fund 1. So it's a really long-standing, long-grown relationship DEG holds with Vantage. And yeah, we are happy to still be an investor in their funds.
Looked at many funds, looked at private equity primarily. We invested both in the South African as well as in the Pan-African fund.
We were comfortable with the team of individuals that were supporting the actual fund itself.
I'm an independent member of the investment committee, along with 3 other fellow independent members. The 4 of us fulfill essentially an independent oversight and governance over the investment decision-making process. That's to give the investees comfort that the team, who are much closer to their business and are obviously incentivized to do transactions, have an oversight and a governance over the transactions they do. Objectivity in the investment decision-making process, because the 4 of us have no vested interest in the success or failure of the fund.
No matter what the economy is doing, these type of loans, in the way they secure them, you're relatively confident that you will get a good return regardless of what your normal equity markets does on a day-to-day basis.
That's the reason why we did 50-50 investing in both funds, and yeah, so far so good.
It gives us cash flows during the investment period, and that was an attractive element.
And we as sometimes as an equity and a debt provider need somebody to play that middle ground that mezzanine funds do play.
For us, it's a very interesting diversification element for our own portfolio.
I would recommend Vantage for an African investment for sure. I think they're on the ground, they have deep knowledge, they're well connected.
The company's been there for I think nearly 17 years. Team has been expanding.
I do recommend Vantage. They do very good structures and they are very good partners of companies.
Vantage is certainly the experienced mezzanine investment team on the continent.
We believe they're really honest people. They build up a strong team.
I would definitely continue supporting them if they should launch a Fund 4 in the future.
They also are a good partner to listen to us and to take into consideration what we want and how we want to achieve our mutual goals.
Without them, we don't have a business. With them, we have a thriving business. So I think it's just to thank investors for their support.
A very diverse team, very highly qualified individuals.
They need to be street smart. They need to be connecting with the right people in those markets.
All of our South African investments are a level 4 or better in terms of the BE contributor status.
People need to be hardworking. People need to be very detailed oriented, because a lot of mezzanine is about the technical detail.
You've got to be a bit of a salesman. At the same time, you've got to have a technical background.
It can take a lot of initiative.
And in most instances, a legal understanding is necessary.
The reality of our business is there's a lot of learning by doing. We want honest, professional, competent management.
I think it's important to also acknowledge those people who have worked very hard to get that deal done.
I'm very excited about the new generation of leaders that we are training up at Vantage. Our partner group is growing. There's some young talent that is being promoted. We are the market leaders. We intend to remain the market leaders.
You need to give back to community and we need to do our bit. 100% of the funding has gone towards funding indigenous entrepreneurs in each of those countries.
To look where you're going, one must always look where you've come from.
We would certainly like to remain the dominant mezzanine player in Africa. We think there's a long and good road ahead for mezzanine.
And keep building on what we have to date, which is a solid business. And the next phase is to go and raise our third fund and thereafter fourth and the fifth.
In the next 5 to 10 years, I see us raising more funds, and the business growing multifold.
And I think very important, we've come from a very small, very modest private equity house to, I think, the largest mezzanine fund provider in Africa.